Yes, hello everyone. Hello everyone here in the room and also everyone watching via the live stream. Welcome to a new edition of Fotochroniek, Pakhuis de Zwijger's photography series about obviously visuals, but also the stories behind those visuals, the stories of the makers, and also some project-related processes that come along with making those works. Today, this is a special edition because this one is organized together with the renowned museum Foam, and it's the first part of a triptych. Yeah, you already heard me saying live stream because we're going to divide this part in two. The first hour is devoted completely to the guests here in the studio, and we're going to hear them talk and hear them share more insights about their projects. The second part is we're going to close the live stream and we're going to be here especially for you. We're going to organize this especially for everyone in the room to interact with us, to ask questions, to join the conversation. But if you are wondering, hey, I'm watching right now and I also want to ask a question, you could join in a way because we are opening a Mentimeter. And what you do is you go to menti.com, and if you have a question, you can ask your question there, and you use code 694921110. If you want to join during this first hour as well, just grab your phone, enter the code, and ask that question as well. And if not, just leave it for later on, because we would love to hear your voices too. My name is Dimfie Brown, and I'm gonna host this edition of Fotochroniek. And we've invited three special guests. The first one is obviously Jonathas de Andrade, a photographer whose exhibition is right now on display at Foam. We also invited Sandra Beerends, filmmaker, and journalist Jouwe. But first, I'm gonna invite someone else to join me on stage, and that is Valeria Posada Vilada, and she is working at Foam. And Valeria, please join me here. Applause for Valeria. Because Valeria, I already mentioned our guest, and Jonathas is now at display at Foam, at least his work is. Yeah. Tell me more about his exhibition in Foam, and how did you get in touch with him, and why did you choose his work?
Okay, well, I was not the one directly who chose his work directly. Actually, the curator Hinderheist from Foam Museum decided to make this project with him. They got in contact before because of another program, another exhibition that was called On Earth. And since then, they developed this, what it's called, part of the Next Level series. And it's a program that's dedicated for experimental advances in photography and the arts. And Jonathas is very well much an example of it. So that's how their exhibition came to be. And of course, there were some setbacks related to COVID and the pandemic, but that developed into another work, which was one that you can see now at Foam, and that was specially commissioned, and it's called Heroínas de Tejocopa.
Yeah, and that's the one that Jonathas is going to share a little bit more about later on.
Yeah, it's not the only one that's being exhibited, but it's one the main piece, or as we say.
There are a few older works shown as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Till when can we visit the exhibition?
Until the 18th of May.
Okay. Is there anyone in the room who has visited, who has seen it live? Okay, I see 4 or 5 hands. So still a few of you need to visit Foam very soon. Today we decided not only to invite Jonathas, but also Sandra and Julia. Why did you want to add their perspectives to Jonathas's work?
Well, For us, within the setup of the public programming, one of our goals is to expand, deepen, and enrich the comprehension and the understanding behind an exhibition. And what caught our attention a lot within Jonathas's work was his interest, or his very keen interest in the gaps, social gaps and historical gaps. And we wanted to basically connect this to a topic that is connected to his work, Heroínas de Tejocopa, which is the history of Dutch colonialism. So what we decided within our search is we wanted first an artist who was also a kindred spirit to Jonathas's work, who had also developed art with the work of communities, and we wanted to invite someone to speak also on behalf of our community and to express, because it's also important to have basically an experience of a day-to-day life activism. And then we decided to invite Jouwe. So with this whole roundup, basically we thought this is something that will deliver a more deeper understanding about the history of Dutch colonialism, but it's not, but it's in an expanded way, and it's with both storytellers and representatives of specific community.
Yeah, and how art and storytelling can contribute to actually getting to know more about these, previously unseen perspectives.
Indeed.
So this is the first edition. We're going to organize two more. The next one is on May 30. What can we expect in the other two editions? Just to already have a
You want to have a teaser, basically.
Yeah.
Well, for the second edition, we're going to have as main guest Jouwe Colonial. She is presenting her work in the exhibition Magnum Open for Business. And then for the last edition, we're going to invite as main speaker Muslam Rabat. He's a Belgian Moroccan photographer, and then also with special guests.
Yeah.
So I can't say anything.
No, but I'm curious, and I'm sure we hear more about that. Well, thank you so much, Valeria, and we promise to pay a visit to FOAMS very soon.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yes, and before I invite our main guest, I would like to mention the Mentimeter code again. That is 694921110. Go to menti.com and add your questions already. Without further ado, I would love to invite Jonathas to the stage, because Jonathas, the exhibition is called Staging Resistance. Right now, a display at FOAM, and you can share. You're going to share a little bit about the work you made in commission of FOAM. So please take my seat, and I'll leave the stage. And let's hear it.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a pleasure to be here in Amsterdam and checking the show. Finally, it was a long process for creating the show Staging Resistance, and also a great pleasure to think over the Dutch period. I live in Recife, in the northeast of Brazil. There was a Dutch period of colonization, and Hinda, the curator, challenged me to somehow comment on that. And I usually work with photography, film, installations. I like the idea of creating certain dispositives, mechanisms, so that then a social group can perform something to me, and for the camera, for a certain piece. And I had a great opportunity to meet a group of ladies who have been enacting a battle called the Battle of Tejocopa. They have been acting that for 30 years. And basically, the Tejocopa battle is a very curious episode where the Dutch soldiers Back in the end of the period of the Dutch period, they invaded this village called Tejocopa. In the day, the men of the village went to Recife, a city where I live, to sell the seafood. So the women defended that territory or the village with what they had in hands, what they had at home, so basic objects. And they keep, once a year, they go outdoors and they enact this battle as a sign of resistance, as a sign of defending the territory. But now it's very, very beautiful because they say it's not about the Dutch colonizer anymore, but it's a fight for hunger, for basic needs, for basic rights. And we are living a very key moment in Brazil. The atmosphere is not easy politically. And I always thought that art can be somehow inspiring through poetry, through subjectiveness, can inspire us to think differently, how we organize ourselves as humanity. And I learned a lot from the projects, and these ladies accepted my invitation to perform these battle to my camera. And so I proposed that they would not be using dresses, historical dresses, but the clothing that they used usually, and not the old objects, but objects that they use in their daily life today. So they accepted for this, and we started doing the scenes, and it's very nice to see that they are like acting, but with a fresh air in their faces. There is a lightness, there is a smile. I love the idea that we can speak of very harsh moments in history. We can review them, and we can review them with strength, because these difficulties, they are in the air, and I think the world is passing a moment where a lot of melancholy is in the air. But I like the idea that we can face and resist through a certain playfulness, through a certain inspiring lightness. And I think performance and theater helps us in doing so. So maybe we can see a little bit of the video that Foam prepared. For the commission at Foam, I was intrigued on how to get back to these memories that seems to be erased by the tracks of colonization. I searched, and I got to know that a group of women have been enacting for 30 years a curious episode of this period called the Battle of Tejocopa. In this episode, women leaded a battle that defeated the Dutch.
A Batalha de Tejocopa, ela aconteceu em 1646, no dia 24 de abril. Aqui tem fotos de agora e tem muitas fotos também do passado, do começo, né? Veio um grupo de 600 holandeses e 200 índios.
Dona Luzia created the theater.
Eles desembarcaram no porto e quando o povo de Tejocopa chegou lá, eles já tinham desembarcado. E daí começou a luta e quando foi já na amanhecência do dia, o major apelou para as mulheres. Para que as mulheres fossem ajudar os filhos, os irmãos e o marido.
The Dutch soldiers, starving, invaded the Tejocopa village, and women resisted using pepper, boiling water, and domestic objects to defend their own territory. So, this is a very inspiring story. I was amazed to see that they have been doing this for 30 years. And today it's like a feminist sign of resistance to new generations, and it's also a resistance through a heritage of Black and indigenous women. I think in Brazil this represents a lot because everything of this Black colonial history is being reviewed. Terms of racism are being reviewed, so it's quite a moment, like in Brazil. And apart from asking them to stage this moment, I proposed to photograph their personal objects of 4 different houses of Tejocopa. And what we see at FOMA in this main first room is the battle itself organized as a totem in the middle of the room, and also on the side walls we see these inventory of objects that are like everything that is connected to their daily battle, which is the title of these work on the side walls. So we see cutleries, pens, we see things that they work with, we see pottery, we see their chairs, we see basic things, we see personal objects, we see the fake arms used for the theater. So for me, somehow developing these for FOAM, the photography museum, there in Brazil, we follow FOAM, and I was a FOAM talent, the program that they have. Back in 2014, I was honored with it. And the idea of experimenting with photography was something that I really enjoy. So in this case, I played with cardboard, which is a material that I really like. It's very versatile. So the cutouts is something that can be enlarged. So this main mid wall is these printed cutouts, these printed images that can be fit all together and can be built up like a castle. So there is also a playful scenario that play with the idea of staging something. The exhibition go with other previous works, also combining the idea of dealing with community. So I'm showing 3 other different projects with the Kayapo community of the women from the Amazon who work with the graphisms. So here we can have a quick image of it. So the photography enters as a documentation of the hand that did the drawing on the map of their own territory. So it's another way of having this clash of drawings as a sign of resistance. We have the video Jogos Dirigidos, directed games, with a group of a deaf community in the countryside of Brazil, in the countryside of the Northeast, a very dry area, with the lack of education. They created their own sign language, which is amazing. It's very theatrical, very mimetical. And I've proposed to spend 5 days with them, creating dynamics of interaction outdoors, and then they would stop and relax telling stories of their life. There at FOAM, we can see the video of these stories being told to us, and we can guess, because we as viewers, we don't know their language. So after a few minutes, we can have a review of these words and gestures as a draft of a catalog of gestures. And the other work is the sugarcane ABC, which is an alphabet made of sugarcane stalks. I've proposed these workers who work in the fields of sugarcane, a very hard work that still exists, and pretty much and sadly connected to illiteracy, so the lack of education, and I having this chance to stop by and ask them to stop the work for 30 minutes and building up these letters is something that was very inspiring, to get closer to these people, to negotiate this moment, and also to share this emotion with you, I mean, with the audience that can go to the museum. Well, thank you very much.
Jonathan, please stick around for a minute.
To run.
Yeah, you were about to run, because I do have few small questions for you. First, actually, a remark, because I'm a Dutch citizen and I took Dutch education. And the battle that you're talking about, the Tejocopa, I wasn't aware of it at all. Actually, I can't even remember we discussed that the Dutch colonized Brazil for a while, was between 1630 and 1654. Yeah, but also the battle. I was actually Googling the battle, and I was looking for Dutch websites about it. There was not a Dutch website that mentioned this event in history. Actually, I found one, but then it appeared to be a poor translation of from, I don't know, English or Portuguese. But yeah, this is not a history that is like known to Dutch people.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. I've heard that many of the Dutch visitors didn't know even about the Dutch period. So I was surprised to know that it's not a chapter pretty much studied. And I mean, we're quite aware of it. We can feel it directly in daily life in Recife, but some bridges were built by the Dutch, and pretty everyone studied in school the moments of colonization. But then the Portuguese came again, and so Brazil is pretty much shaped on that. And being in the Northeast is very interesting because it has these complexities. It's like an older Brazil, which for Europe standards is very young Brazil, no, in a way. But the project of colonization impacts pretty much up to today. And so...
Yeah, so you still notice a lot of the effects of that period in time in daily life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, very directly, not by chance. I think even, something basic. Our currency is 5 times less than euro, for example. I think very things that we naturalize and we think they're very normal, they are impacted by the geopolitics, no? Yeah. And internationally, but also internally, not by chance. These ladies are Black and indigenous women, and there is a whole project of a sad genocide of the communities there with the politics that make these populations very fragile and vulnerable, no? So, I mean, if art can somehow comment or somehow be sensitive to that, it's something that, I don't know, helps me get closer to these issues. And the impact for the community, even for a project like this, it's really beautiful to see them being proud to be here. They are super aware. When I post, I tag them, and they are aware of that. Their images are in the...
What do you think it means also to show a project and share these stories actually on Dutch grounds?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'm the one who... I asked Dona Luzia about this, and she was like, you should tell them to come and see my theater. Yes.
Well, we should go there.
Yes. She was like, because I told them, look, I have the opportunity to speak with the Dutch. So what am I supposed to say? And she said, tell them to come here. They are my guests of honor in my theater next year.
But she's going to tell the stories, right?
Yeah, so I mean, when I come back, I'll have to tell her what's the message that, how the Dutch visitors have perceived. And I've heard...
what are responses so far?
I don't know. I mean, I've had...
You've got some feedback?
Yeah, people are enjoying. I see surprised faces. Yeah. And in these days at FOAM, it was beautiful to see people, I mean, enjoying not only the form, but amazed by the story.
Yeah. And I think what is also really nice is the playfulness you use in actually all of your work. You can see that, but you use you make it a little bit lighter without taking away the seriousness of your stories.
Yes, like I said, this is a little bit of a strategy, but also the way I myself approach these themes which are very hard to digest. No, I think it's one way that I found myself also trying to not to crystallize everything in a dismobilizing melancholy that we easily get when we live in very harsh political times. So the idea of game is not only a dynamic that requires questions, require actions, require participation, not only in the process, but it challenges me ethically, socially. I mean, I don't come from their background, but I'm a Northeastern myself. I'm a Latin American man. So these hits me back in a way. And but also I believe this energy goes to the audience, to the visitors. I really believe in the power, the pedagogical power of art. I believe what we produce as artists, as museums, as institutions, they are a very special food for schools, for didactic books, for discussions. So I like producing images and storytelling with the idea that I want people in the room to be challenged. Is this true? Is this not true?
Yeah.
Is this fiction? Is this not?
Yeah.
Is Tejocopa real or not? But being Tejocopa alive for 30 years, I mean, if it was a forgotten history, I think it's back.
Yeah.
And it's and if it can come here to Amsterdam and to Dutch audience, I think it's amazing to come to bring back such a painful moment with this lightness, so we can reformulate how we understand our history and activate it in the present in a strong way.
Yeah. And I think these are really nice subjects to discuss as well with our next speakers.
Fantastic.
Thank you for
My
now.
pleasure.
We're going to bring you back in a few minutes.
All right, so see you in a bit.
Please take a seat again. And I would like to invite our next speaker, because that is journalist and activist Jouwe, and she's going to share a little bit about the basics of West-Papua.
Thank you so much. And also thank you, Jonathas, for sharing that story. Never heard of it before, but really, really inspiring. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm Julia, I'm 25 years old. I'm activist, journalist, also community builder. And it actually all revolves around West Papua. It's oftenly framed as like a forgotten history from the Dutch colonial past, but it's not forgotten. I think we just stopped talking about it because it was so painful. But the reality is that we don't know about it. Like in public discourse, in the Netherlands at least, it's not very known. So I was also asked to just give a small history lesson. Yay! Okay, here we go. This is the map. You can see Indonesia, and the red part is West Papua. So the whole island is called New Guinea, and the western part is where my family comes from, and also a little bit on the other side, because as you can see, it's like a straight line as a border, which was drawn on a map by colonizers. Yeah, and it's actually the second largest island in the world, very rich in resources, gold, copper, and yeah, it was a Dutch colony. And after Indonesia gained independence, the Dutch held on to this part because they're very different from Indonesian people. They don't identify as Asian, but as Melanesian. They're black people, which was a big reason, at least for the Papuan community, to stay with the Netherlands, because they promised them independence. And that independence never came, because in 1962, the Netherlands signed the New York Agreement, in which the sovereignty of West Papua was transferred to Indonesia. And Indonesia wanted to have that part, we think, because it's of the resources, because of the gold, which makes them very rich until today. And it's, actually for us quite painful. And ever since then, the Netherlands never looked back, and also Indonesia is really controlling the narrative. And I think there's another slide next. Yeah. So they divided the West Papuan side of the island. They keep renaming it. So we had like Irian Jaya, West Papua. Now they divided it into several parts and called it Papua and West Papua, to make it really confusing for folks to understand, like, what's going on there. So we call our country West Papua, I think that's the name we should all use. But it's like a way to control the narrative and to confuse people and to make it more difficult for people to like actually engage in our story. And it's because it's because why I'm an activist today. I'm also politically active at Bijeen, the party, and so I'm one of the protagonists in this movie, a documentary that's being made still by Daan Veldhuizen, it tells our story, and a big part of it, which is really important to me, is that it's not Daan Veldhuizen, which is a white Dutchman sitting here tonight, but it's me as a representative of the Papuan diaspora based in the Netherlands. And because it's still being made, and Indonesia is like very vigilant, they have their eyes on us. We're gonna show something different. It's from a documentary made about my grandfather, because he was in the New Guinea Council, and he spent his entire life fighting for the freedom of our people. And this is a part from the documentary in which he tells a little bit about why the moment that he got inspired to stand up and do something. And he tells the story of being in school and having a teacher I think he's Malaccan or from Indonesia, I'm not sure. But the teacher is telling him like, no, Papuan people, they're dumb and they're less. So let's have a look.
Eigenlijk elk gesprek dat ik met mijn vader voerde, en dat waren er nogal wat, kwam uiteindelijk altijd terug op Nieuw-Guinea. Als we ergens over praten, dan uiteindelijk...
kan ook niet anders. Je hebt een vaderland en dan
we begonnen ergens over en op een gegeven moment ging het toch weer over Nieuw-Guinea. Dus je ontkomt er niet aan.
Het is een mooie verhaal geweest. Ik heb mijn zoon verteld. Ik was 11 jaar op de lagere school. Er stond een Indonesische onderwijzer uit Sulawesi, Srebes. Gaf die een les over bevolkingsgroepen van Nederlands-Indië. En kwam die over het Pakhuis. Zei die, dat is eigenlijk Pakhuis, je kan niet vergelijken. Je kan niet zeggen dat ze mensen zijn. Het is, zoals de Duitsers dat zeggen, dat is mensen met een unheimisch mens. Die staan op het hele lage niveau en onontwikkeld. Heel anders dan wij Indonesiërs. Allerlei beledigende, minachtende terminologieën gebruikt hij. Ik zat te snikken op 11-jarige leeftijd. En vanaf toen heb ik besloten... ik zal mijn best doen de Papuase volk een eigen plaats te geven.
Nice.
Wait, I'm not sure if my mic works. Yes, thank you, Julia. That clip was without subtitles, but it was your grandfather actually sharing some of the grief he already saw as a young boy, as an 11-year-old, and that's actually the moment when he decided to like, okay, I'm never gonna stop speaking about this subject. It was part of the documentary called King Without Land.
Yeah.
Your grandfather, he in a sense also inspired you to speak up. You're also the founder of the Young Papua Collective. What is your
Co-founder, by the way.
the co-founder? Excuse me. What is your aim with the Young Papua Collective?
Well, our aim is to unite Dutch Papuans here, also to educate them, because just speaking for myself, because my grandfather was, an activist and a freedom fighter. He also brought home a lot of that pain and the trauma. And I think for my dad, it was really important to find his own way around in the Netherlands. And it's probably also the reason that I've become such a Dutch citizen as well. And I never really felt the connection with my Papuan roots, even though my grandfather and also my auntie, they talked about it a lot. But growing up here in the gray city, and it's just, I didn't feel the connection. And then in 2017...
Yeah, it just stays a story, right?
Exactly. And the stories are like quite mythical. And growing up in a Western...
Maybe even a little bit
romanticized. Well, that's what it sounded like. But I went there and all the stories are true. Like, it's a paradise. But being there for the first time really changed something for me, especially the community vibe and the community love that I experienced in West Papua. I never felt before in the Netherlands. And I really wanted to bring that home, to share that with other Dutch Papuan youngsters. So that's kind of the aim, unite, educate, but definitely also celebrate. Yeah.
Your grandfather, Nicolas, he moved back.
Yeah.
We have a short clip showing his homecoming, his arrival. Right. You want to introduce the clip a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So when the Dutch transferred the power to Indonesia, everybody that was fighting for freedom had to flee. So the Dutch Papuan diaspora is like a political refugee community. So also until today, activists and journalists are forbidden. I am now both, but I still go there as a tourist. But yeah, he had to leave, and then in 2009 he went back, which I think was very brave, because he was already an old man, but he still wanted to try and help out. Yeah, so let's see that moment.
Yeah.
I think this is his last day before he left.
This is when he's arriving again, right?
Yeah, so 50 years later.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jouwe. Please remain seated until we have reached our final parking position and the fasten seatbelt sign is off. And please do not switch on your cellular phone until you are in the terminal building. And we would like to remind you that you must have a care when you open the luggage bin. Passengers with flight connection are requested to consult our non-stop.
Robbie. Apa makan mai? Kau fai guk joti fane. Jeta joti fane lalu joti fane. Kau jangan ni joti makan semai.
He's saying, I'm back now.
Exactly.
Bijoren koto. Taken koto.
And he's calling on his ancestors to protect him.
And then suddenly we don't need anymore all those lahir. Kita perlu batinan, kita akan perlu itu, akan peluk itu. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because he's seen as still an important man Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know who he is. Did you realize your grandfather had such an influence growing up?
No, I didn't. Really didn't. This was the first time I actually saw him doing his thing live. So that was really, really special. And also, as you can see, there was a lot of press. So it was really big news that they were inviting back a West Papuan freedom fighter. So
Yeah. We're gonna talk later about the movie, the documentary that you're part of, and also the narrative in media. But for now, I would love to say thank you,
Thank
Julia. And from Julia, yeah, please applaud. Because from Julia, we move to Sandra Beerends, a filmmaker, and here to share a little bit about her documentary that was released in 2019. Ze noemen me Babu, or They Call Me Babu. Sandra, can I please invite you to the stage? Yes, please. Sandra, I just announced you as a filmmaker, but is that how you would describe yourself as well?
Well, it was my debut, so afterwards I'm a filmmaker.
Yeah, now you're called a filmmaker.
I'm a storyteller.
Yeah, storyteller is also covering many things. Okay, They Call Me Babu. Can you maybe, because we're going to show the trailer in a minute, maybe just as a short introduction, can you share what the word Babu means?
Well, Babu, when I first heard it, it was the name of an Indonesian nanny. And I heard it from my mom, and I thought it was like a round, motherly, nice, caring word, because she also told me wonderful stories of this, like, fairy tale mothers. But then when I did some research, I talked to a grandson of a former Indonesian nanny, and he said, "Oh, I hate this word." And I said, "Oh my God, why?" And he said, "Well, it's not a nice word, and so people in Indonesia they hate it, and my grandma was insulted by it." And then I heard from him that it was not like an Indonesian word; it was a Dutch word. From two different words, from meba and ubu, and it means madam and mother, and so they make it together. So in the film, there's also one scene that she was called by that name, and that's why the title is also They Call Me Babu, because from that moment on, she doesn't have her own name. Her function and the name was the same. And most of the times, they work for Dutch families, and they have their own name, but that's very difficult for them. So sometimes they were called by the kids they're taking care of. So it was Babu Jantje or Babu Pietje. Well, I can talk for hours, but
let's take a look at the trailer.
Yes.
Bu, ibu ajar aku, perempuan mesti berdiri sendiri. Ibu beri aku punya cita-cita kehidupan yang indah. Mereka cari jaga anak untuk keluarga. Ada 3 anak laki-laki, 1 perempuan, dan 1 bayi, Yance. Aku dipanggil Babu. Aku tidak kenal kata itu. Ba dari kata mbak dan bo dari kata ibu. Babu. Sekarang mulailah hidupku yang baru. Banyak kesan baru. Hampir nggak dapat aku camkan. Banyak sekali yang kulihat, ku dengar, aku cium. Kami pulang. Semuanya kurasakan tidak asing, tapi juga baru. Malam hari aku mimpi Yance diculik kuntilanak, hantu jahat yang suka culik anak. Mereka nggak dapat aku lindungi. Kami punya cita-cita masa depan kami dan impian Indonesia merdeka. Aku rasa bisa jadi bagian dari sesuatu yang hebat.
Yeah. So this is a fictional story about Alima, a Babu, that you based on testimonials from families and actually the grandsons, granddaughters of these women. You used archive material to tell this story. Where did you start?
I started at because this is from people that most of them they don't exist anymore. So I wanted to have real authentic material, and I started at and they had a big collection of amateur material, because in that time most of the Dutch families, they had a camera, and mostly it were the white fathers who were filming it.
What is the time that this was playing? Because it was during Dutch colonization in Indonesia.
Well, it's between 1939 and 1949. So there were 3 periods. So it's the Dutch colony from 1939 till 1942. Then the Japanese occupation. There is also the Dutch occupation, but then that's from 42 to 43, and then the independence, the War of Independence. And I especially wanted these 3 periods and seen by the perspective of a young Indonesian woman. So there is I've seen like 500 films from amateur material, but also propaganda from Dutch, Japanese, and Indonesian side, but also company films of kapok or tea or whatever.
Yeah.
And because most of them were without sound, so I just looked at the images, and they give me a lot of information. And sometimes they give me information, and I thought, now I have to interview people, and the other way around. So I made it in the edit.
Okay, so I just wanted to say what came first, the story of the or the material, but it was like going both ways.
Yes.
You brought some of the first images that you found, because you didn't know if there was actually material of these Indonesian women available, but you did found a little clip, and we can show it right now, because it was a clip of where a family brought one of the girls to the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
It was with snow. Can we show it on the screen? This was the first moment you realized, like, hey, there is moving image of these Indonesian women.
Yeah, because in the collection there was not like a team like Babu, so I needed to see all the amateur films, and then sometimes it was there is this Babu, but then I didn't see somebody, and mostly because they were making these films, the amateur films, the family films, to show to their Dutch family. So like, we are having a great time here, and this is our house, this is our garden, these are the people who are working for us. And so they're mostly focused on their children, but I knew that almost every family with children has a Babu. So I was looking very, very well, and then sometimes I saw this child in the middle of the frame, and in the back, I saw
they were
a tree.
Literally like invisible.
Yeah, and then she came by, or sometimes it was just a spoon inside the frame and then outside.
Yeah.
So, and then suddenly I saw this lady, and she for the first time seeing snow, and it was like, wow.
I don't know the story not yet, but I need that image. Yeah, and the image we're seeing right now is it almost looks like snow, but it's kapok.
Yeah.
Material to use to make textile, resembling a lot this shot that we just saw with the snow. But this one is in Indonesia, right? And you definitely thought that I need to enter that as.
It was one of the things that one of the first images that I saw. Oh, this is so beautiful. I don't know how I can use it, but it has to be in the film. And then later on, I saw this woman standing in the garden with the snow. And then it feels like a kind of rhyme. So this is something special that she sees in the Netherlands, but in a way it resembles the kapok in Indonesia. And a lot of people doesn't know what it is. And so, well...
We just heard Jonathas say involving the communities. Well, in this case, the women that he connected to the project. How did you reach out to families whose stories you wanted to show in these movies?
Well,
in this movie?
There is a big Indonesian network, so I asked if anybody wants to share their films and photos and stories. But I also wanted to go to Indonesia and then to find a babu. That was very, very difficult. But I spoke to some of them in Bandung. But also this lady that you just saw. I found one of there is. She's taking care of Jantje, and there's also a little sister involved. And so this sister, she was like 93 when I found her, and I interviewed her, and she was like a little bit of losing her mind, but she knows exactly the first 7 years. So she told me a lot of stories about this babu. And so a lot of stories that I heard were also in the film.
Yeah, a lot of them don't have names, or at least they have names, but we don't know about their names anymore. With this movie, you wanted to really give them a face. There's also one shot, and that's I want to show that next. This is almost at the end of the movie. Can you introduce the clip a little bit?
The last clip?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because maybe I have to say why I made a choice to make... I made a story of one babu, but it's a collective stories from all the babus.
She's representing many.
And this is... in the story, she fell in love with somebody, and he's an independence fighter, and she's sitting with him, and she's like fantasizing about the new future in which Indonesia will be independent. And I heard Jonathan also saying about how important education is, and for her, that's very important, and she feels proud because, you know, this man, he's also triggering something that's about her mind, and not only about she's looking sexy or whatever. And she felt like this whole independence fight, that it makes her big, and she's dreaming about all these women that she met, and they are like the representatives, I don't know, of Indonesia. So I found,
and it's also a constant struggle between her loyalty to the Dutch family and to especially Jantje, the kid, and also like the future that she's having in Indonesian independence.
Yeah, and also the funny thing is that in a way, because she was with this Indonesian family and they took her to the Netherlands, it is in the Netherlands that she realized that it's a strange situation in Indonesia, because she will be friends there with somebody who's working also for the Dutch family. And she said, hey, Betsy, you know, I'm Sandy, we're going to have a coffee together. And she said, but I have to work. I said, no, you're free. So, and then she heard for the first time about every country has his...
she actually learned about injustice when she visited the Netherlands.
Yeah. So it makes her also independent in a way. So this clip is really about well, feeling her as a woman. She's in love, but she's also feeling very proud to be connected with the whole community and with all the women. And in a way, they're all fighting for their independence in their own way.
Yeah, and this is the moment where all these women that are that you put in one person are shown in the movie. Let's take a look.
Kami punya cita-cita masa depan kami dan impian Indonesia merdeka. Aku rasa bisa jadi bagian dari sesuatu yang hebat. Aku dirikan kelas untuk anak-anak di desa kami. Penuh sayang ribut panggil aku Kartini.
Yes, beautiful. Let's invite Julia and Jonathas back to the stage because then we can have a conversation with the three of us before we close our live cast. Yeah. Before we say goodbye to the audience online, I would love to hear you respond to each other's work. Who wants to go first?
Impressive. Yes.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
It's beautiful. No, I work with film, and I was like, the images are so powerful, and I love that it's somehow you playing with this footage and fictionally engaging. It looks so connected. I mean, your presence, your sensitivity is very clear for the little excerpt that you shared with us. Thank you so much.
I got goosebumps, actually. Yeah. Fair. And what I also love is that both of your stories are about women. I love that. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because those female perspectives, that is something that connect both of your works. Well, I think the female perspective is missing a lot in every history, not only the one of our colonial pasts, but what drives you to focus a lot on these things? Because it's these are missing stories. How can they help us better to understand all these different historical events?
Is it a question to me?
All of you. Well, maybe you, because you were the one that noticed it.
Oh, yeah. I think it's, how do you say? It's just a perspective that's missing, and it's a different perspective from that of males, or men. And I think that's important, also because I feel like history is not objective, even though it's oftenly presented as being objective and like these are the facts. But it's usually like how men lived through those things, because usually they're telling the story, and that's why I really loved it. And yeah, so good job on that.
Well, I think that most stories are written by white men about white men.
But also about communities,
Yeah.
And it's never like with, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
And I think the story is totally different from a female perception. And maybe because they can have children, I don't know. But I think you have a different view in a way, as you...
And also because of the hierarchies in colonialism and the patriarchy, it's just a different intersectional identity. Yeah. So it really adds to the story. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the thing that drives you the most in telling these stories? Because you shared a lot about your grandfather as well.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah. What drives you, for example, Jonathas?
I mean, I'm honored to be among you and also it's funny, because a few of my projects have approached and the female perspective, and I've noticed these. Even we haven't had a chance to speak like at phone, but I approached the women who take the tradition and the resistance is through the Kayapa women. These women are the ones carrying the history of resistance and the colonial past. And in other examples, it's funny because I'm a man myself, but I can feel the urge of breaking the male perspective, even as like a Latin American and a Brazilian. I can understand how these white man history is totally dominating a certain history of possession, of domination, and how historically the image of women is connected with objectification and so on. So it's very, somehow there is a clear power going on in these new narratives that shift new perspectives through the female perspective. And it's clear that while going to even other projects that have both men and women, the women stand out. Like I did a project recently on homeless people, and the perspective of the women they really stand out as the ones who have a message. And it's amazing. I mean, you're super young, and it's very amazing to see you as an activist so centered and with such a strong voice. So it's also inspiration. Just to give also feedback on your presentation. So, I mean, I think that's a little bit of the comment I had.
Yeah.
And your voice and your sensitivity is clearly in the images, in the way the narration happens, and even in your presence. I mean, it's very touching.
Thank you.
Because Sandra, what is that you hope to? What did you hope to accomplish with this story?
I want to have another perspective on this whole discussion of decolonization, what's going on in the Netherlands, and it was really like either you're black or you're white. And I was looking, because I'm Dutch Indonesian, so I felt in a way connected to these Indonesian women, like between two cultures, trying to find her own freedom, and but in a respectful way. And so I think maybe women are more urged. They're more challenged by daily life. They have to go on, and they have the community, and they have children to feed and to raise. So I wanted also because there were a lot of people who say a lot about this time in Indonesia, and I didn't want to. I used propaganda material, but I only use it for the images, and not to.
Yeah, you added a new story. To
Yeah,
it, right?
and because for me it's not about giving the answers, but I hope to trigger some questions, like you do in your work. I didn't say anything about you; it was so quick. But I'm looking forward to go to film. I'm impressed. But I think the dialogue is the most important.
Yeah, and that's something that you want to create as well. Keep the dialogue alive, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So, even with, I heard that a lot of, the Dutch soldiers, well, they say it was political action, but it was really war. Like now the Russians say, we have this operation and it's just war.
Yeah.
But most of of course, there are very bad people there, but the most of it were young Dutch boys, and they really thought that was the story.
Yeah.
You're going to help there because there are Nazis over there, Japanese Nazis, and you have to free them. But that was not the point. It was a totally economic other story. So it's always about people.
It's also the power of language, right?
Yeah.
As a journalist, I bet you have something to say about this. Like, I mean, words, words matter.
Yeah, for sure. I think also that because I study journalism, and I think like how we talk, but also how we write in news or speak about it really determines the first draft of history. So we actually, while talking about it, also while writing about it, we're writing history. So they definitely matter.
Yeah, and also the use of, because you produce like new materials about existing events, you used old material to tell actually new stories, so that's a little bit different, but you're all adding those new narratives to history. We are going to say goodbye now to our live viewers. Before we do that, I do want to have a short pitch, and then we continue the conversation here, because Ze Noemen Me Babu is still available online to watch, right? Can we find it?
On Tudoc and on the player of I.
Perfect. That's why we can still watch
Let's
it.
see it.
Jonathas, your work
is at FOAM until May 18th. Yes.
And Julia, any upcoming events?
Actually.
The documentary actually that you mentioned. Let's talk about it later a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be launched in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Pax Neerlandica. I wrote it down. And also follow Free West-Papua campaign on Instagram or other platforms, Twitter. I'm also active on social media. Yeah. Thanks.
So for everyone joining online, thank you for watching. This was Photochronique together with FOAM, and we will see you at the next edition, and that will be on May 30. We will not be live streaming that event, so please make sure you join us here in the room. Hope to see you soon at Pakhuis de Zwijger. Yeah, okay, 5-second break. Okay, let's continue the conversation here, because I still have some more questions, but I'm also sure that people in the audience have some questions.
I feel more relaxed now.
Yeah, now we're relaxed. Now we can breathe, and now we can have a little bit of fun. I see also people here in the audience are like, I don't know what it is, right? Those cameras, it's still something like... Anyways, I'm sure that you have some questions too. Is there someone that would like to ask a question?
I actually have a question for Sandra.
Of course.
Because I learned about also something called the Njai. Yeah. Have you heard of it? How is that connected to Babu? And maybe we should explain Njai.
Yeah, explain that one first.
I think the difference is that a Njai, for a long time, the Dutch people who were working there, they were without women. And so
Dutch men working there,
Dutch
right?
men, yeah. And so the people who were there working for, they say to them, it's better for you to take an Indonesian woman, otherwise you will not survive it.
So that was also like a form of slavery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they were called Nyai, and they were like housekeepers, but mothers of the mixed children. And but and yeah, well, there are a lot of sad stories about that.
Yeah, and those are also still like hidden stories.
Of course, yeah. But in
Never shared in families.
the time of my film is between 1939 and 1949. Then there were a lot of Dutch women coming there, so there were not that much. I think maybe, of course, there will be there, but it's mostly situated at Java, and there are a lot of Dutch women as well. So then they have a babu, and they are taking care of the children. And of course, I'm sure that there will be men who are doing a mitoetje with the baboes, but that I don't know.
A mitoetje. Me too. But we make every word like a smaller word.
Something without consent.
Yeah. So mitoetje is like a little meat. Yeah.
Question from the audience. Yeah.
Is it working? I'm Hinda, and my question's for Sandra. I'm wondering, how did you, I mean, you harvested all these different stories from all these different women. Did you write a script that was then written out or read out loud, or how did the text form?
I made this decision because there were so many stories that there were not also people that could tell the stories like in a documentary. So that was why I thought there are so many beautiful stories. I try to make it in one story. And I didn't, when I started in the edit, I edited for 4 months. I had like a script, but it was more like, okay, so now I want to do something on the rice fields. And then I said to my editor, okay, I have like 50 films with rice fields, so let's look at it and try to make it. And then I had to say something, and I didn't like my own voice, but I had to do the voiceover at the start. And then the funny thing was I did it in Dutch, but so it has to be translated in Indonesian, and I wanted to have the Indonesian language of that time. But that was much more slower. So I have to change it all the time. So in that 4 months, I think I made like 30 versions of, and I wanted also. I don't want to have the voiceover all the time. So when it was clear, I could tell it with images or with sound or with music. Like in this last clip you saw, I tried to have this all image together mixed with the sound and with the music. Because for me, the most important was to try to have a kind of emotional feeling that you felt how she must have felt in that time. Yeah.
Maybe for people in the room that are interested in also using archive material, because there is a lot available and also still a lot just like hidden at attics or in photo albums, etc. But for the things that are available, can you give any tips? Where can we start looking, for example?
Well, in the Netherlands, we have 2 wonderful archives. One is the Film Museum and the other one is Sound and Music, Beeld en Geluid.
Yeah, Beeld en Geluid in Hilversum.
And so they have wonderful archives. And so the most, the funny thing is that the most material of that time in Indonesia is here, because.
And not in Indonesia, you mean?
Yeah, because I also was looking there for a long time for maybe something that I didn't see here. But after the war, they took all the material as a kind of war thing. They took it back, and also
Yeah.
the Japanese material. But they also had material from Japanese archive.
Yeah, that's located now
Yeah.
in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also Stadsarchief, for example, is also a good example.
Yeah.
Do maybe someone in the audience that uses archive material and has a good tip as well? Where to start looking? Nationaal Archief. Yeah, that's also a good one. You did that? You worked with archive material? You did. Can I ask you a little bit about it?
Yeah, you can try. Well, I went to The Hague, to the National Archives. Of course, being an Indo, I went there too late. And by the time we understood, when we understood how to ask and the things that we have to ask, then it was a little bit too late. So
Because what were you looking for?
well, we went there for the Red Cross archives because you cannot find them digital. You have to go there, and so now I'm planning to go next week again because last time it was too late.
Because you're looking for specific information about your family. Yeah.
And maybe also Koninklijke Biep. You have a lot of newspaper archives there, which is really interesting, I think.
Yeah. You used archive material to tell a fictional story, although it was based on testimonials from others. I want to share a quote that Jonathas shared in a video that was used to promote staging resistance. And it says, "The interaction between fantasy and the official history is fascinating because it speaks on how fluent memory is, how amnesia plays a role in the official writing of history. The writing of history is about editing. It's about choosing a way, about taking one point of view." We did already discuss it a little bit in our previous stories, but what did you mean by that quote?
I think when I realized that the history was a part of the whole thing, it was always a decision, and usually told by the ones who won, or the narrative, the discourse, or sometimes politically won, the power of deciding what is official, what is not. It really blew my mind. I realized that image making is also about that. It had these subtleties behind. And the idea of documents, bringing the truth, it's also very relative, like which documents. We produce documents as well. So I thought that in my first projects, I started working with archive, and it's fascinating, it's absolutely fascinating to retell stories and with archive. But also I started combining archive, which is very understood as ordinary. Like I have a work called Tropical Hangover, which combines a diary, a journal that a friend of mine found in the garbage, and it's a night guard speaking of his love adventures. And I started combining this with 4 different photo archives of aerial views of Recife and personal shots of daily life, of relaxation, drunk parties, like scenes by the beach, by the pool. And it was beautiful to see how individually they were official, but together they became a huge fiction. And people who would see that in the exhibition would have to decide. So people started thinking that I was that character writing in the 70s fictionally. That was so fun to me, because in the first exhibition I didn't announce what it was, so I could gather the. So that's when I understood that a game was possible with whoever sees a work of art, being that like a documentary or being that like an exhibition, being that like a film. There is
you
always
have different
these
tools to do that.
Yes, and the idea that amnesia plays with our understanding of history is something.
Can I ask something about that word? I'm not even gonna ask. Because in my thesis, which was about framing on the Papuan colonial history, I actually contend that word, and I'm sure you'll agree when I explain to you, because there's another concept created by Edward Said, and Gloria Wecker also uses it. That's like the cultural archief, and she connects it to another concept called aphasia, that it's not amnesia, like, oh, whoops, I forgot, because that's never what happens, right? It's like actively hidden. And aphasia talks about how we're silent, we're not talking about it, and therefore we also don't develop the right words to talk about painful colonial histories. And it has a lot to do with the cultural archive, like how do we see ourselves in the Netherlands? So I'm coming to my question. In the Netherlands, we see ourselves as very progressive, but also like intellectually superior, and we have this whole vibe like, yeah, we accept everyone, but there's still a lot of racism and neo-colonialism. So I was wondering...
It's internalized.
Yeah, it's very internalized here. And we still have this image of being progressive. But I was wondering, how is that going in Brazil and the area that you're from?
I mean, about amnesia, it's very interesting what you say.
I'll send you the article.
Better. I'm not a good reader, so it's better when you. But the whole thing about amnesia, before I answer about Brazil right now, is I did a project in 2009 that departed with the idea of being a Latin American. But in Brazil, we understand ourselves more like Brazilians than Latin Americans. Because we don't speak...
Can you explain a little bit? Because the rest speak Spanish, for example?
Yeah, the rest speak Spanish, and we are more on the coast towards the Atlantic. But for me, that lack of self-understanding, of self-identity, had a relation... I started understanding that had a relation with the trauma of the dictatorship somehow. Because it was a moment that South America started being split a lot by the dictatorships, and everybody, there was a disconnection. And even back in 2009, I felt my generation not understanding themselves politically engaged. There was a lack of our bodies somehow couldn't react politically to go to the street. Now it's changed. I mean, there was something in 2013 that across the world, we went to the streets again. But back then, I realized that our bodies had the memory of these trauma and a lack of memory. So we couldn't, I felt my generation was sensitive to politically, was sensitive to the injustice, but almost intellectually. We were not with our bodies in the street. We couldn't engage our bodies socially. And for me, that's where I started thinking, wow, the amnesia sometimes is intended politically through these processes of trauma, through processes of colonization. So the bodies reflect on these restrictions. And sometimes we don't realize. This is why the field of... there is a level of political awareness through arts, but also through socially engaged activism, who invites a group of the present body to go to the streets, to really put a voice out, to expose ourselves, which is radical in change.
Yeah, and claiming your space, literally. Yeah.
And it fights back this sort of amnesia, which is paralyzing. So image making and documentary and filmmaking and history writing is also about this. And I mean, I speak a lot through the perspective of the Northeast and these stories who look very local, but it's fascinating how through the local we can have a perception of this is a faraway tale of a faraway land. But then when we open up the discussion, it touches like everyone's hearts. Everyone has histories of
and
exploitation.
it is like recognition as well, because it's in a way connected to the specific community, but also you see already the recognition in stories here. Although
the stories here
take place somewhere else.
This is why we are together, and I think we can understand what we emanate as how these stories are about pain, but also emotion, and how in today how they can impact our heart and chests to make our living like a different behavior as a collectiveness.
Did you, like, in the process of making these beautiful projects, did you experience yourself, I'm asking the both of you actually, like the internalized colonialism and the traumas, and how did you deal with that?
Big question.
If you want to
I'm also thinking about what is said already. For me, it also has to do with the story of my mom, and she has a trauma of the Japanese camp, so that is also another thing. And also, like, what she remembers and what she doesn't want to tell. And one of it's not a real answer, but maybe I will tell an anecdote. When on the premiere of the film, I was afraid that because since her father was in the Japanese camps, and I told you, then afterwards he went to, then it was called New Guinea, and he died there. So she always had these nightmares every night about the Japanese soldiers. Wow. And so when she was on the premiere, I was very afraid that she would have this nightmare again. And she was on the front row. And but she said, no, I will look at it. And then you have seen this image that these Japanese guys, these young Japanese soldiers, walking by. And then afterwards she said, for the first time I could look at it and I saw they were just young Japanese guys, and they're not monsters, but in my head there were already these big monsters, and I was so afraid. And now I think I will never have these nightmares again, because I see that they're just humans, and they were forced to be there, and it's so I don't have to be afraid anymore. So this is about remembering and seeing, and it's a little bit another answer than maybe you asked.
No, it's great. I think it's healing, right?
Yeah,
like intergenerational healing.
I was just wanted to ask, because how's that for you as being third generation?
Yeah, we also still deal with it. Yay, because it keeps on until someone breaks the cycle. So I also experience it, and I try to, as an activist, you criticize a lot on systems of oppression, but you also need to make sure that you're not being a hypocrite, because being an activist and a journalist, the main thing is credibility also. So people will listen or engage with you. So the systems that you criticize, you also have to take down within yourself, and that is something I still do every day. I also, living in a former colony, I don't think I'll ever be done doing that work, because I still live, right? I still live in it, in the system that I try to fight.
What are your tools to break that cycle? To not also pass it on to the next generations?
I think what we're all doing, like, keep telling the stories, and also keep editing in that way the history and how it was told. And
to also make sure that, in your case, the dominant narrative that there is going on right now about West-Papua is changed.
Break them and show the counter narratives. And also,
do you feel already that's changing?
I feel, not with West-Papua, I feel that there is like a growing space for counter narratives, and that people are slowly realizing it. Also, with the local elections, for me, that Bijeen gained a lot of seats. That's like a very
political
positive
party in the Netherlands.
a political party, and they're activist based, so grassroots, also very community centered. And I think that's, for me at least, a positive change, because it tells me that people are ready for the counter narratives.
There were a lot of people that didn't feel represented by politicians, and now there are people that look like them and also have like lived experiences.
That changes.
And that's
the whole thing,
changing a lot.
Exactly. So and it's not just that, but also
Okay, so what we are seeing change.
Yeah, and also with the Black Lives Matter protest, I feel like, I don't know, it's there's space, but we still need to tell the story of West-Papua more.
And also about archiving, because what we're adding to the current debate, how do we make sure that in 50 years or so, these are added to the history books, actually, because that's also what we're trying to change, right? Those narratives that weren't captured in the past, that they are captured right now. And it's great to see that art is also a way to do that, besides people writing history books.
Yeah, exactly. It's boring.
Yeah. Any more questions from the audience before we wrap up? Here? Yes, I'll join you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lavinia. I have a question for Jonathan. So I think it's really important you're bringing this story to the Netherlands. It's so relevant. It's important for the Dutch public to see this, to reflect on it. But I was wondering also, how do you think your work will be perceived in Brazil? Like, will it be something to say, look, this is what's been done poorly by the Dutch in the past, in the 1600s? Or will it also be a reflection of other types of oppression that are happening today?
Well, I hope this is not about the Dutch colony anymore. Just like Dona Luzia said, I think the message is for other kinds of oppression. But for me, the great message is we have these ladies enacting this for 30 years. This is an act of resistance through art, through creating an identity for that village, which is something, super inspirational. For me, it's a knockout, totally. And for everyone that I mentioned, even here, it's beautiful and it's inspiring. And I think it somehow, it speaks so much of today now. They've been doing that for 30 years, but now we are really understanding the urgency of having these other narratives again. And within there, the Black community and the indigenous community and the female perspective is everything that has been denied a lot in the narratives. So I think this is already very powerful. And we were speaking about healing, the whole process of creating a platform or an excuse through art to perform your own history again. It's something that it changes the understanding of a group. I think it's very powerful. For this work, they already have the idea of acting, no? But for other previous projects, I had the chance to approach a community and propose, let's do a film in 5 days. This breaks let's break our routine and stop for a while and work on a footage about yourselves. This is it's very challenging to me because it's quite a responsibility. And I come with a script, sometimes very harsh, and it's beautiful to see people just breaking the script. I come with proposals and then they don't work because the understanding is different. And then the more I open that, the more eloquent the work is.
And the more authentic the stories.
Yes, and I'm always learning, because I don't get it at first. Sometimes I'm disappointed with myself. How can I understand? But only when the cycle finishes, I understand that it had to do like that. So this mechanism, it is about healing. And also, the way we look towards the archive is one way, but also how we produce new images in these dynamics of fiction making and fiction which are in between with documental, no? Because they are never only like something else, no? The narratives are, it's very beautiful. There is a theorist called Augusto Boal, and he created the theater of the oppressed. And he says, when you enact yourself, you change the story. You get aware of the story. You can create tension here and there. You can dramatize, and within doing so, you can have awareness and you heal. And it's very powerful. I haven't studied him deeply, but somehow what I've been doing crosses here and there, and I can feel this happening not only with them, with the people I work, but with the questions that are posed to me ethically and so on, and with the viewers. And I think we are in the times of reviewing the official stories, recreating our own narratives, and acknowledging who are the weak voices that have to have stages for them. So I think it's not about me telling their story, it's me being a channel for something
it's also
that...
you listening.
Yes, it's about listening. It's about listening, and it's about recognizing a voice that it's there, that for some reason I am a channel for other ways that can like, amplify their voices.
It's also about like bringing your body and your
positionality, right? I think positionality. What's your position?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you in the community, or like that's a big topic?
Exactly.
Right now,
because I felt awkward sometimes because I am not from the community. Am I allowed to do this? I mean, this is a big issue.
Yeah, maybe you can add something to that perspective. Because you mentioned the documentary that you're part of, and also the position of the filmmaker.
Yeah.
Any tips for makers here in the audience that do want to share stories? Like,
yeah, I think it's the big question. If you're making something that's not like your story, just try to really be honest with yourself. Is this my story to tell? No, but I want to tell something about it. Like, how can you do it without disrespecting the community? So always do it together with the community, and I think it's the best thing if they sort of adopt it and make it their own. It needs to be theirs. It needs to be their story. So
just allow to let the script be.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Ripped apart by the community.
I didn't understand that before. I thought, okay, my idea is this, and I mean,
just do it.
It's failure, and it's beautiful that it failed because it saved what the film had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is how together we can rewrite history.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for sharing these stories, knowledge, the way you made art and also connected with the communities. It was an inspiration to all of us, and I hope you feel inspired too. We're not finished completely yet because we can still go downstairs to have a drink, and I'm sure you are open for more questions as well, but let's do that in the bar. Thank you so much, Sandra, Jonathas, and Julia, and also Valeria for
thank you.
Co-organizing this evening. And thank you, Team Pakhuis. We're not completely finished yet because movie at NPO 2. Foam, May 18. And also the Venice Biennale, because you curated the Brazilian Pavilion. And obviously the movie that's... we all come back in 2023, right?
Actually, also May 10th, there's a Solidarity Cinema with a movie about West-Papua. It's at Vrijpaleis in Amsterdam.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, downtown.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome, May 10. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you back on May 30 here, because then we have a next edition of Photochronique with Iranian photographer Nusha Tavakolian, who will be part of the exhibition Open for Business Magnum Photographers on Assignment in Foam very soon. Thank you. Let's have a drink.